I'm Reggie Ponder, the Real Critic, and I get a chance to talk with Inny Clemons about the series, The Big Cigar. Did you know that Richard Pryor that Richard Pryor was even a part of his life, of Huey Newton's life?
No, prior to the audition for this project, I had no idea that Richard Pryor and Huey P. Newton hung out in the late 60s, early 70s, and really had a strong bond. And, Huey's, his revolutionary, impact really made, affected Richard and kind of made its way into, some of his comedy and the way he, went about his career actually after that relationship. So, yeah, Huey had a big influence on Richard, and very, very grateful to have played this role in this series.
And and then you told me the story about your audition. So I'd like to hear that again, because it seems like to me you went a little bit overboard.
Well, not overboard, but I had to go. I had to go in. You get a call to Don Cheadle, who's one of the executive producers of this project and directed the first 2 episodes. He's a close friend of mine, and the way Don, did it, he just said, "I think you're right for this role. You should come out and audition." And I was like, "Okay." When Don says that, you jump. He hadn't said that before in the past, so I said, "Cool." And I didn't know what the role was. So when I found out that the role was Richard Pryor, I just told my wife that I kind of have to disappear for a couple of days to prepare. I had coached. I'm an acting coach as well, a producer as well, and I've coached guys about playing real characters. But this is the first time that I really had to kind of delve deep and do a little bit of method. I'm a Meisner trained actor, but it's serious work. When you go stepping into someone's shoes as iconic as Richard Pryor, and I hired a professional cinematographer. I think I told you the story yesterday. I produced a film called A Lot of Nothing, starring Ilan Noel and Cleopatra Coleman. They're amazing. You guys should see that.
I saw it. I saw it.
Oh, thank you. Mo McRae is the director. We had a blast with that film. So Shamir Anderson, he had an audition tape that was out of this world, and I hadn't seen one as good. And so when I was preparing, I just had that in my mind. I have to have a better tape than Shamir. So I hired a professional DP and got with my friend Adam Lazar White, and really just I was in character from the time I showed up to the audition. I let him know I wasn't going to be chatting. I was kind of in it. And so when I got there, his wife, Dendry Taylor, we actually started spitballing going. So that audition really helped me get into the character, get into the spirit of Richard, tap into that. And it was a heavy load. I carried that around for a couple of days. And after I was done, I was just kind of in a fog and drove home. And the producers responded pretty quickly to the audition. And so it was a bit daunting, because I knew once I got the role what I had to do, in terms of tapping into the spirit of Richard and just living in that time period as well. So we filmed for 3 months, and just having to go in and out of that was a lot, but I'm very grateful. And it was a great opportunity to use my training and to really tap into someone who's iconic and special. So I'm very grateful.
What's two things that come up as we discussed is that you talked about that you're a Meisner trained actor, and I'm not sure people really know what that is. So if you could explain that just a little bit, and then I'll get back to some questions about the piece.
Sure. It's just a technique of acting. Sanford Meisner wrote a book, and there are many, many disciples of his style of acting. Gene Taruso was my teacher. Myself, Wood Harris, went to the same undergrad. We studied theater at Northern Illinois University. And Gene Taruso studied directly from Sanford Meisner. So it is about living truthfully in the moment, listening and responding. You're not pretending to do anything. You're really in that moment. So a lot of actors start with an exercise called repetition, and it just gets you to get the focus on the other person. You are listening and responding to what they're doing. So it is a very intense method of acting, style of acting. But once you study it, you kind of, live with it forever. Sam Rockwell, I think, is a student of Sanford Meisner as well, another phenomenal actor. So I think you are very, very fortunate having studied Meisner and, moving into the craft of acting, because if you're taught correctly, you're never in your head, you're in the moment.
Wow.
You're living truthfully in an imaginary circumstance. So I think I told you the story about Straight Outta Compton, which I was in. I played a pretty pivotal scene as the cop, the Torrance police officer, to the guys, coming out of the studio with Paul Giamatti and them on the ground. And that was a very intense scene. And the director, F. Gary Gray, who's a friend of mine, he just said, really get after them.
Wow.
So make them uncomfortable, which is a form of Meisner agitation in a scene like you. So for the first time, those guys didn't know I was playing the role. They had seen me in the producing chair with Gary. I was also the acting coach along with Dustin Felder. And so on that day, they saw me. I didn't speak to them. And then we just got after it in the scene. And I think what Gary allowed us to do in that scene really showed in the film, because it's a pivotal moment. And those are real tears that you see Jason on the ground when he's frustrated. I get a chill every time I think about the scene. Paul Giamatti in that scene. The stuff I was doing with O'Shea when I was like, yeah, do what your master said, boy, that just came out in the moment.
Wow.
So those were real moments, crafted, of course, by the aid of the text and the director and all the special people, Maddie Libatique behind the camera. So it's just really special to be able to tap into those moments. And here in the Big Cigar, Don, knows me fairly well, and Andre Holland is an exceptionally talented actor. And so to be able to have these scenes with him and drop into the moment after the work of the character is done was very easy to create real moments, because you have you're across from an exceptional actor.
So it's really interesting that, and when we talked about this a little bit, but that Richard, obviously most people know him as a funny guy, and there was some little funny moments there here and there, because the show wasn't just it had some levity in it throughout, despite what people might think. But you were, I mean, your character really wasn't the funny. I mean, that wasn't what you were doing there.
Yeah, I think it was important when I read everything in the scripts that Richard had to do. He was really just being himself, everyday Richard Pryor. So the work, the research was going back, listening to everything, of course, all of his stand-up, all the albums, reading his book, and really finding interviews where he was dialed back a bit and just kind of having a conversation with a reporter or with someone where you could really see more of who he was. And I'm sure he was everyday funny, but he was just a friend or a husband or, a lover or whatever that is. And so you just kind of have to sit in those pockets. And so, in the project, I was definitely aware that Richard has a heightened state about himself, of course, but it is important to do the first job, which is to listen and to be real in the moment and not try to put on any kind of airs or do any kind of shtick or anything. That's done before you get to set, and it's like when you're teaching an actor, you learn your lines so that when you're in the moment, you are not encumbered by them. You can move freely in the space. If you drop something, you can pick it up. Those are real moments. And so, yeah, it was really, really cool, because in the project, I was able to just create and craft real moments throughout the project. So,
and talk about, for you, the importance of the Big Cigar. For you, what for me, it was a learning experience, and I'd be really interested in you talking about that.
Indeed, I think getting a chance to tell this story about Huey P. Newton and the Black Panthers during this time, and how courageous they were, and the the good they were doing in the community, and to usher that in under the guise of a heist. Sometimes it's not appreciated because it seems, non-traditional. And we have great films about, in the past, a few about the Black Panthers and what Bobby Seale has done, and how important they were to the revolution at the time. And so there's a little bit of this is an unconventional approach to telling the story, but what's important is that the filmmakers, Janine and Jim Hecht and Don and all the directors, made sure to protect the image of Huey and the Black Panthers, and to not play games with that, and to not be silly, even though there's levity in this project. I think they did a phenomenal job. It's the job of each director and the showrunner to make sure you're paying attention to tone, and you don't get too out of pocket. And so I think Janine did a phenomenal job, Janine and Jim both, with making sure, and we talked about this as well, that it does not come across like a white savior project. Huey was concerned about it in the project, right? In the story, he was concerned about Bert Snyder,
that's right,
hijacking the movement and somehow making his crusade less important and all about Hollywood. And so that message is actually within the story, and it's actually on the outside as well, from the filmmakers making sure that they respect the legacy of Huey P. Newton and the Black Panthers and what was actually happening at this time, because it's serious stuff. He was framed for murder. People were trying to kill him. And so the anxiety that I'm sure he carried around, just like a bunch of, political prisoners and people in the cause at that time, was serious stuff. So the filmmakers did a great job with that balance. And I think everyone should see the entirety of the show, because it gets better and it's well handled. And there's a ton of integrity about the project and phenomenal performances.
I think it always starts with the writing when you have these great pieces. So if you could speak to the writers, I'd love
Sure.
to do that.
Well, I found something out during the screening process, that this was a thesis project for Jim Hecht, and he happened to bump into Bert Snyder after carrying this around in his, as oftentimes filmmakers do, they have a project for a long time, right? And Josh wrote the article for Playboy magazine. And so this was a passion project for both Janine and Jim for quite some time. And then for it to finally get made, first of all, the writer Josh wrote, I think he wrote the same article that Argo was spawned from.
Oh.
And so one, it comes from good writing from the article that then becomes the IP. And then Janine and Jim really taking the care and bringing it forward to a series. And so the integrity in that process is integral, right? It's you cannot drop the ball when it comes to the importance of what is happening. Yes, it's entertaining. We talked about this as well. So putting it in this heist environment and with juxtaposing against what is happening in Hollywood to create this vehicle to help smuggle Huey out of the country. And then what's happening on the serious side of things with the Black Panthers and Huey, running for his life and having to be on the run. So to juxtapose those two things and make it entertaining is the goal. So that's one task that's difficult, but they did that really well. And then so to entertain and to teach. And I think this definitely sheds some light on what was happening during that time. There's a lot of.
I think it does a third thing, which I did speak to yesterday. It makes me want to learn more too. So
100%.
so I was entertained. It taught me some things, but now I'm like I gotta Google some stuff. I gotta go look up some other things because it was that interesting in terms of learning about it.
That's right. And I have kids. I have daughters who one's a freshman in college and the other one's a junior in high school. And so to have these conversations with them about who Huey Newton was and the Black Panthers. No, Black Panther is not just Chadwick, in a suit for Marvel. there was the Black Panther Party, and then we can talk about that, and the conversation can continue to happen in our community and abroad.
Well, I have two more questions, then I'll let you go. One is about the for you to speak about your co-stars, just to talk a bit about working with the actual ensemble cast. There's probably some folks you might want to mention. I know when you do this, you'd be like, "Oops, I forgot somebody,"
Yeah.
but I can't be with you without you talking about them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, the highlight for me was working with Andre Holland as Huey, and just to be across from that guy who's, as I said, exceptional as a talent. But I was also in scenes with Moses and Tiffany and Alessandro. So I think again, just to have that brotherhood with Andre, and to I was a fan of his prior to seeing uh, Moonlight, the Nick. He's just an extremely talented actor, thespian. I'm sure his work on stage is equally exceptional. And again, Tiffany and Moses were incredible. I got to work. There were some smaller roles in there. Bridget Coulter Cheadle was also in the piece, and Imani. So I think I've always been a stickler for, casting the right people in my projects, and even the smallest role from a person who delivers one line, those people can affect your film in terms of the performance. So I think the filmmakers did an incredible job. Not to leave out PJ Byrne. He's he plays Steve Ballmer in the project. He's hilarious, and he does add on that side of the show with Alessandro. He definitely adds some great levity. Um, and again, I think it's a balance when you're doing a project like this. There's so much nuance involved that you have to have a sharp filmmaker, and Janine's no slouch at all. So she's paying attention to what is happening, crafting the show. And again, like, this is her and Jim's baby. So they handled it with care. And I think, hats off to Apple for even, being brave enough to put this kind of content out there. So I think everybody should check out the Big Cigar on Apple. It's streaming now, starring Andre Holland. It's pretty exceptional.
My last thing is that I didn't start off with this, which I thought I might, is that since you're from Chicago and I'm from Chicago, it's always great to talk to Chicago folks. My sister teaches in the Chicago public school system, and she teaches actually acting and the arts. And so I'd love for you to give the kids in Chicago public school system a message of just a message, whatever you might want to say to the hometown folks.
Of course, man. And first off, you said your sister is teaching.
Yeah, my sister Sharon. Yeah,
she's doing God's work. So hats off to her. Chicago public school system is challenging, but beautiful as well. I went to Kenwood Academy in Hyde Park, so I had no idea that I was going to leave Chicago and become an actor. And so I've gone back to speak and do workshops, and I had a workshop planned with Dustin Felder actually before he passed. And so I would say, to go for it. Like, these roles, it seems like it's so far away, right? To be an actor, to be a producer, to be a director. But right now with the internet and post COVID, everything is through Zoom. You can audition on tape. You can email people. You can go on to IMDb Pro, get a membership, and just and follow the trades, follow Deadline and Amazon. This is a business, so you have to learn about who's doing what, who's casting what studio or network is producing what, and that's in addition to your training. So get into a theater troupe. Don't wait to act. Start acting. Start doing plays. Learn monologues, and really hone your craft. Try to connect with a good teacher, and then you can read some literature. I think the book is called The Actor Prepares, which is the Meisner book that we talked about, or the training that I spoke about. And, you know, you got to go. This is a lifelong journey. You can't be in it to be a star. You have to be in it to be a working actor. If the star thing comes, great, but you got to get in it for the right reasons. A lot of young people see fame and they want the,
yeah.
You gotta be a true artist, because this is a lifelong thing. This is one thing you can do from the time you start until the day you die.
Wow. Inny, really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming back and talking with me. Much success for this project, the Big Cigar. I'm telling people they should check it out. I know you just did, and I do hope people will check it out on Apple.
Appreciate you, Reggie. Thank you, man.
Thank you.